Hey, this is Johnny Kelly from Typo Negative, and you're listening to The Dan Chan Show on Hard Rock Hell Radio. Cheers.
Johnny Kelly, one of the busiest drummers in the business. I mean, we've got Typo Negative, Pale Horse Named Death, Seventh Void, Danzig, Silvertomb, Kill Devil Hill, Huggers and Blow. You've played with so many bands, Johnny. I mean, Piston and Black Label Society. Have I missed anyone?
Yeah, I don't know. That's covered a lot. Seven Witches.
Another one. I know. I've missed one out. And how's everything going in Dallas? Have you got a strict lockdown at the moment?
They just opened up the state, like partially opened up this weekend.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know. It seems like where I live, it doesn't seem like anybody was really getting the warning right, because every time I would go out, to go to the grocery store, I was only going out to get stuff that we needed, for the house.
Yeah,
and it was always a lot of traffic. I'm like, it was like, is everybody going to get beer?
Yeah. It's the same here. I have to make excuses. I have to buy more groceries when I have to go out and buy wine, just to make it look like I've got a legitimate reason to go out.
Yeah. Other than that, it really hasn't it hasn't been bothering me. I'm not freaking out, being home or I mean, I was supposed to be on tour for most of this so far.
For which band though? For which band?
Silvertomb was supposed to tour the States with supporting Monster Magnet.
That's right. Yeah.
And they shut everything down, I don't know, the day before I was supposed to fly to New York for rehearsals.
Yeah. Did you? Obviously, you're originally from New York, from Brooklyn. That's where you're born and bred.
Oh yeah. Born and raised, and then I moved to Texas like this summer. It'll be 3 years.
And do you miss Brooklyn, New York?
I'm in New York pretty often.
Yeah.
So, but no, I don't really miss it. I miss my family and my friends. But, every time I'm home, I make sure that I, make time to go, see my brother and stuff. And I stay with my mom. I see my mother more now than when she lived, 10 minutes away from me.
It's always the case, isn't it? Is Texas must be a slower way of life, isn't it?
Yeah, I like the speed. The weather's nice. We still have, they have seasons. It's not like it's just hot all the time. It's not like Florida or, it gets cold here in the winter.
Yeah.
Even saw snow a couple of times this year.
Yeah.
Not much, not what I'm used to.
No, sure.
But no, it's just it's a different pace. Everybody's polite. It seems, everywhere I go, people hold doors open for you.
It's very European.
You go to 7-Eleven, you're not treated as a suspect. They greet you.
So, Johnny, I want to take you right back to, obviously, I'm a drummer myself, and we met at Rock City. I think it was 1997. It was the day that Tony Blair, the Prime Minister, got into power, and I met you at Rock City. It was on the October.
We played there when Tony Blair got into.
Yeah, that was the same day. Because I remember coming home thinking, God, is the world going to change? Is the world coming down? But it was on the October Rust tour. So I want to talk. First of all, you've got an affiliation and a love for British bands. Is that right?
Oh yes, of course. My father.
What's your top three?
Indoctrinated me as a kid on the Stones and the Beatles and Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath are my favorite bands. I don't know what they put in the water in Birmingham, but it's pretty incredible. The iconic bands over the years that have come from that city.
That's crazy. So what would be your top three British bands?
My top three would have
tough.
To be,
it's hard.
It is hard. Probably Zeppelin, Sabbath, and the Beatles.
Yeah. And obviously you've been to the UK quite a bit.
With the Stones
in there.
Four. I do four, yeah.
3A. And you've obviously toured the UK a lot. So have you visited a lot of these, the big venues and the famous landmarks that these bands have created?
Well, the last time I was there with Danzig, we got to play the Roundhouse, so that was pretty cool.
That's cool, yeah.
We played. I played Brixton Academy twice.
Yeah.
I've been to Earl's Court. I never had the opportunity to play there.
That's a pretty special place.
I always wanted to play the Hammersmith Odeon.
Were you in a Led Zeppelin cover band called Earl's Court?
Yes, yeah.
Is that still going?
No, it was actually everybody in the band, like they got hurt. Some form or another. Everybody was hurt except for me. Knock on wood.
Good job not in Spinal Tap style that you didn't get hurt. So go right back. Why the drums? How did you get into the drums?
You know what? It chose me.
Right. Yeah.
It wasn't like I sat there and I was like, I want to play in a band, and this is the instrument I'm going to play.
Yeah.
It was something I always wanted to be a drummer.
Were you self-taught, or did someone help you? Or
yeah, well, when I was a kid, when I was around like 11 years old, there was an older kid, I guess, that lived up the block from me that had a drum set and was like, "Do you want to learn how to play drums?" And I was like, "Yeah," because I wanted to be Peter Criss. And I was like, "This is perfect." And he taught me how to play a beat, and then I didn't really pursue anything. I couldn't, I couldn't have a drum set, and it was just, I wasn't taking lessons after that. And then when I was around like 15, I started playing again, just by chance. A friend of mine that I hung out with, I didn't even know that he played guitar. Like he was doing this, and it was like, I guess it was like all like, under the, below the radar. Mm. And he was like, one day he was like, I knew that he was like, taking guitar lessons. And then I had no idea he played in a band. And he was like, yeah, he's like, my drummer just quit. And I was like, well, I could play drums a little bit. He's like, you can? I was like, yeah, a little, yeah. And I was 15. Mm. So I went with him to the studio that was literally a block away from my house that I had no idea was there. And that was it. I've been, since then I started playing. I learned how to play on my own. And then when I was in my 20s, I was lucky enough. I was friends with AJ Perro from Twisted Sister. Mm-hmm. We were friends. And then I talked him into teaching. This was like when I was in my early 20s, before I joined Typo. A couple of years before that. And, he's like, why do you want to learn how to play? He's like, why do you want to take lessons? It's like, you know how to play. I was like, but I said, I want to, learn how to read. I was like, I know I'm doing everything wrong because I'm self-taught. I want to learn the right way, the proper way to do stuff. I said, I don't even know what a rudiment is. I've heard of them, but I don't know what they are. I would just I was ear trained. So I would hear, like whatever, learn records and, learn songs from records, I could learn, I was ear trained, but I'm sure that I was doing stuff incorrectly. And I was like, I wanted to learn how to do that. And he was like, all right, fair enough. And so I would go to his house once a week. And I did that for like 2 months. And then he was, he got too busy. He was like, he goes, I can't do lessons anymore. And then that was it. And then I joined Typo shortly thereafter.
So Typo was your first profile band, right?
Yeah, I played in a lot of local bands, for years before that. It wasn't like, I just decided, I'm going to play drums, and then boom, I'm in Typo Negative.
And you obviously knew the guys from the band because you were driving for them, is that right?
I drove for them for a couple of shows. They had a couple of one-offs that were very, very long distance.
Yeah.
And I went with them. But before Typo, I knew everybody in the band. I was friends with Sal. Sal was like the first one that I met. And I met Sal, I guess, around the time I first started playing because he lived in, we all lived in the same neighborhood.
Yeah.
Like the five of us, we could all walk to each other's houses. We were all walking distance from each other.
Yeah.
And the studio that we all rehearsed at, that was like, the common meeting ground for a lot of the bands that came out of Brooklyn.
Yeah. And
I met Sal when, I don't know, I guess he was around like 13, 14 years old when we became friends. And I was playing in a band with Kenny for years before Typo started. And then Kenny and I used to rehearse at Josh's studio. we recorded there, and I recorded with other bands at Josh's studio. Mm-hmm. So I knew Josh, I knew Peter. From the neighborhood. Carnivore used to come to the studio. That's the studio that I'm talking about. I wound up working there for years. Around the time I started working there, I was still in high school, and then I worked there for a few years. And so, all the bands that came in, I knew all these people because I was the kid that was setting everything up for them. Mm. And so when the time came, when Sal left the band. I called everybody up and was like, if you guys are, because nobody knew what was going to go on because the band really wasn't a working band, so to speak. they made the records, Slow, Deep and Hard, Origin, Bloody Kisses had just come out.
Yeah.
Like the record got released, Sal left the band.
Really?
Like around just like a month or two after the record was released.
Yeah.
And so, like, nobody knew it was really going to go on, because the band isn't a working band. Now they don't have a drummer. Is it even worth it? Who knows? And I was just like, look, if you guys are going to keep going, whatever. I said, I want to come down and audition. And
never look back.
Well, at first it was kind of, I'm trying to think about it. This is 1993. Yeah. But Kenny, like, because they decided that they were going to keep the band going, whatever. And I remember, like, before I auditioned, Peter, I used to be a mechanic. Peter used to come to my shop and hang out with me and my boss and stuff. I did a lot of work on that car before I was in the band. And he was like, he comes over, he comes to my shop and he's talking to me, like, whatever, to check me out. He knew me as a person, but he didn't, know how I would be, like, whatever, to be in a band and with somebody. It's different. And he was like, just want you to know, this isn't that kind of band, it's, don't quit your day job. He's like, I'm not quitting mine. He's like, so it's not that kind of band, and I was like, you know what? I said, I don't give a shit. I was like,
did you dig it before? Were you digging it?
I was like, yeah. I was like, I don't care. I was like, I just want to be a part of it. Whatever you do. Yeah. I was like, I love the band, so that's what I want.
Hard Rock Hell are proud to announce that HRH AOR will now be combining with this year's HRH Blues Crows Festival to bring you HRH ABC. We promised you one hell of a weekend you'll never forget, and now we've made it bigger. Join us at Camp HRH Great Yarmouth with blues giant Joanne Shaw Taylor, the incredible Simon McBride, as well as the mighty Molly Hatchet as part of their 45th anniversary world tour, as well as new additions. The Choir Boys, Gun, DAD Bonfire, Eclipse, and Enough's Enough. HRH ABC runs from the 12th to the 15th of November 2020. For tickets, visit hrhblues.com and hrhcrows.com or call 0207 193 1164.
Just seen the 10th anniversary of Pete Steele's death, his the musical style, his humor, the writing and everything, it would never be replaced. You must miss him a lot, as well as a bandmate, as a friend, right?
Oh yeah, of course, absolutely. I mean, in a lot of ways he's still alive because
for sure.
Constantly talking about him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like in a good way. It's not like, like, oh shit, here it comes again, another question about Peter, it's not like that at all. But like when we're hanging out and whatever, touring with other bands and you constantly just telling war stories of all the crazy shit that's happened over the the almost 30 years now.
So as a drummer, I need to touch upon that typo drum sound. It was so unique. What was behind that?
Really, it seemed like to me, the songs, the music that I was given, whatever the ideas that were given to me, it was just like, just trying to be in a supporting role of what that was. Mm. It's like Typo is not that kind of band where it's like, wow, listen to the drummer in that band. No. The drummer's great. No. It's not like it's not a lead drums band.
No, I get that. Yeah.
It's a very supporting role, and you just try to do you just try to come up with something, or to put a foundation on it that would really support the song and support all the other things. Like there were a lot of layers in Typo's music. It wasn't just guitar, bass, and drums. There was a whole bunch of other stuff going on, and it was all happening at the same time. And you can't have a drummer that's constantly overplaying
of course.
In a song like that.
Yeah.
So that's that I guess I kind of knew my role, there were some songs where you could stretch a little bit and get a little jammy and, but for the most part, it was always in a supporting role, is to be a foundation. So usually a lot of times it was the simplest thing was wound up being the heaviest and, was the most complimenting to what the music was saying. So what the melody lines were.
What do you think made Typo so unique? Because I was talking to lead singer of a band called Dole last week from Holland, who I think you quite like, actually. And we were saying that, Typo will never be, not that we want it to be, but it will never be replaced. It's so unique. What do you think made it like that?
I don't know. I mean, it's really hard to, it's hard. You can't just pinpoint it on one thing. Peter was an exceptional songwriter. The guy knew how to write a fucking song. He knew his way around melodies and key changes and stuff like that. And it was like, that was never questioned. Every time, like even like our weakest songs, or like what I felt would be our weakest songs, were well written songs. So he knew, he always knew how to write a song, and I think like a mixture of that. The sarcasm, the self-deprecating humor.
That's it. The album inlay, thanks.
Peter was everything. A really charismatic person.
Yeah, well, yeah.
And that came across in his music. I mean, not just like his wit. He had a really sharp wit, which was, you had to be on your toes to catch it a lot.
Yeah.
And then, on top of that, like, his how he looked.
Was he like that all the time? Was it intense to work with him? Like that?
No, actually he was, I mean, at times, like, of course, like, it's like being in a marriage. Like, there were times like, we'd drive to the studio, and like, we didn't even get our coats off, and we were, fighting and arguing and stuff. And that was it. We get back in the car and go home.
And he's 6'8", wasn't
he? Yeah. So it was like, but like, working with them, like, I mean, as far as like drums, there was like a lot of freedom, I guess. Like I worked with Josh.
Yeah.
On most of the drum patterns, like for the most part, like Peter, like with his songwriting, when it came to drums, it was very linear.
I mean, I know you still speak to Kenny. I know Josh is a paramedic now, isn't he?
Yeah. He's a paramedic for the fire department in New York.
Do you still speak to him?
Yeah. I stay in touch. We stay in touch with each other. Texting and stuff like that. I think we get along better now that we're not in a band together.
Has he removed himself from the industry completely now, from the scene?
Oh yeah. I mean, there's still things that go on. Like with Typo, I guess as a business. Like with our merch and doing like re-releases and stuff. And yeah, he participates in that. Of course, he's part of the band.
Of course. So I mean,
but as far as like going out and like doing any kind of promotion, like like all that stuff, he's removed himself from
saving lives.
Yeah. Well, Josh has always been 100% person, all or nothing.
Yeah.
So like when he was in a band, everything was all about Typo Negative. That was it. Then he went to school and he was a paramedic. Now he's completely consumed with his work there.
That's cool.
He doesn't have the he doesn't have the desire to like split himself up like with me playing in 50 bands. So
he's
not that kind of person. Like he's hyper focused on one thing.
Yeah. So talking about another band, so the Danzig gig, obviously that's a big gig. Obviously it's you've been playing with Glenn now since what, 2002? Is that right?
Yeah, the first tour I did was in 2002.
So how did that? Obviously, he's gone through a couple of drummers since Chuck Biscuits from his original lineup. I mean, how did
actually not as far as drummers go? Not really. He's had way more guitar players.
Oh yeah, for sure. But how did he settle on Johnny Kelly?
All right, let's just go back to the beginning, right? Joey C left the band, right? Joey replaced Biscuits.
Joey Costello,
he was in the band. He was in the band for a number of years.
Yeah.
Joey left, joined Queens of the Stone Age. I had seen it announced on online that Joey had joined Queens of the Stone Age, and I saw that the Danzig had a tour coming up. So I was trying to reach out because we had some people that like crew guys and stuff that had worked for both bands.
And you toured with Danzig, haven't you, with Typo, right?
Yeah, we toured with them. It was on Danzig Forum. We were at the we were touring for Bloody Kisses.
Yeah.
And that was a tour. We toured in the U.S.
What a tour that would be to see.
It was fun. It was like we were playing like big theaters and stuff, and like in both bands, Danzig was the height of his popularity, and pretty much Typo was too.
Yeah.
So it was cool, and it was a good crowd for Typo to play in front of. And,
yeah.
Definitely helped Typo's fan base grow.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And So then, so now they don't have a drummer, and I saw that they had tour dates. So I tried reaching out to a couple of guys that I knew that were working in the band. And Typo at the time, we were on a break, we weren't doing anything. I was like, oh, let me see if they, if they need, if I can fill in, if they would want me to fill in, whatever for that tour. So at the same time, my name had gotten recommended by somebody else to Glenn in California. So while I was trying to get in touch with him, he was trying to get in touch with me.
That's good. Yeah.
And so then I went out to California. I auditioned, and at the time they were auditioning some other people, and they wanted, Glenn wanted somebody that was local to him. Mm-hmm. And so they went with this other guy, and the guy, I forget what his name was, Charlie something. And he did 2 gigs with the band, and then they called me back and asked if I would go to Europe. That guy wasn't working out. And so then I went to Europe with them. And then after that, we did like the first Blackest of the Black shows. Yeah. That was in 2003. Mm. And then Typo had a record coming out. Life is Killing Me was coming out. And Glenn, that's when he brought in Bevan. Mm. Because he wanted a guy, like he didn't want to share a drummer. He wanted his own guy.
His own, yeah.
So then Bevan was in the band for like a year and a half, something like that. He did the 6th Circle of Snakes record. Yeah. And then after the record was done, Glenn called me again. He was like, what are you doing? Do you want to do the tour? And that was it. That was 2004. And I've basically been there
ever since.
For everything since. There's been a couple of times, like where, Typo was going on tour, so I couldn't go out with Glenn. And then they brought in Carl Rockfist, the guy that plays he plays in with Michael Monroe now.
Yeah.
He did a tour. And then there was like one other run of dates that Glenn was doing that I couldn't do, and Bevan came back to do those. But other than that, I've been there since 2004.
And you've played on a couple of records for Glenn, haven't you? I mean,
yeah, a couple. I've done a few things. We did like the Dead Red Sabbath was the full record that I did.
Yeah.
And then I did a bunch of songs from the Skeletons record.
The covers
and then
album,
on the last record, I only did 2 songs on that record. I think.
Am I right? The Death Red Sabbath, didn't he give you the spontaneity to play on the album?
Yeah, because I had no idea what we're playing until I get to the studio.
So there's no demos up front.
That's that's it. There is no. We don't do any. Glenn doesn't do any pre-production with me or anything.
Is that his style? Do you think is that how he works?
Yeah, I mean, he's been happy with everything that I've done, so I guess he figures it's a working formula for him, so there's no need, to change it up. But he'll give me we'll get to the studio, I'll get there before him. I set everything up with the engineer and stuff, and we get drum sounds and things like that. And even that, that record was made. I was on tour with Typo. And we were playing, Typo was playing in California. We were playing in Orange County, and we were playing in Hollywood with the day off in between. That day off in between, we took my drums off the bus and brought them to the studio, and I recorded part of the Dead Red Sabbath on my day off on the Typo tour.
His smile, the hammer strikes, thunder rings the name. Everything you know is known, and never be regained. Married up, the iron thoughts, cutting through the land. The course of day, a rock and roll, calling down the air. Reported like coasters through your brain. Everything you knew is dead, I'll never live again. The hammer strikes upon the land, the
fun setup with Tommy and Glenn. It must be a fun gig to play, right?
This lineup, yeah, there's a lot
Steve
of characters.
sings
I think it's, because we're all, I guess, like, New York, East Coast, New York, New Jersey.
Yeah.
Everybody has that same wise ass, troublemaker, instigator personality.
So we got the Pale Horse Named Death album came out. Was it last February, January? And then
January. Yeah.
And then you've got the Silver Tomb album, which came out in the fall. How's that been going with those two?
Well, with Pale Horse, we were able to go. We went to Europe twice.
Yeah. We
did a couple of dates in the States, not many. And now, I'm not really sure what's going on with the band otherwise. Mm-hmm. I'm kind of, taking a break from that as well. But I'm not really sure. There was supposed to be some stuff happening, and then everything, for whatever reason, some of the dates, it didn't work out. They were trying to schedule some stuff for April. I mean, this was before all the pandemic stuff happened.
Yeah, of course.
And then there was in the summer there was going to be a scheduling conflict. Glenn was supposed to. We were going to Europe. Danzig was going to Europe.
That's always predominantly German dates, wasn't it?
Yeah, for the most part. Yeah, there was a Czech date.
Yeah, Scandinavian date, predominantly German. Because I was like, where am I going to fly to?
Yeah, right. It was basically we were sandwiching dates in between two festival appearances.
Right, I see.
So that's what it was, and it was only. I think the whole trip was all of what? It was 10 days. Something like that, 10 days, 11 days. So anyway, that got in the way of a potential Pale Horse run. And then everything, then the shit hit the fan and everything fell apart. The world as we know it is totally different now.
I know, it's bonkers.
The landscape is completely different.
Exactly. How do you think it's going to play out? What have you heard in the States regarding getting gigs back? Because I've heard
well now now you're hearing different things, and it depends on what side of politics you're on.
Yeah, sure.
I know being an adult and paying taxes, you can't keep everybody home and just print money.
No,
right. And it's hard to try to read between the lines as far as what they're telling us on the news and stuff, because there's an agenda from the network, and it's do they want us to stay home and just be sheep and not work, or do they is this disease really as bad as they're saying?
And it's not a world thing, is it? It's so individualized with countries. Every country's got its own agenda, and it's so complicated. Yeah, especially in Europe as well. If you consider every state in America as being a different country, that's what we've got here in Europe, and it's so difficult.
Yeah, and it's I see that it's hard to keep people home.
Oh, yeah.
To just ride it out, to whatever, flatten that curve. That's what they keep that's what they keep talking about.
Yeah.
And that much I understand. There's no cure for this thing.
No, not yet.
They were just doing this to not overwhelm the healthcare system.
That's right.
So that everybody, so that the whole population of the country didn't run to the emergency room in the same week. So knowing that in the back of my head, it's this thing's going to be around for a while. If they do find a vaccine, you're talking a year from now.
So you haven't got any gigs on the horizon that are already booked in that could be potentially cancelled again, do you?
Everything got cancelled.
Everything, but you haven't got anything in the future that's planned for the fall.
I have nothing this year right now.
No. Yeah,
nothing.
That's
we might be able to salvage some Hookers and Blow dates because everybody else's tours are getting canceled.
Which you bought a single out recently, didn't you, with Hookers and Blow? That's correct, isn't it?
I've been playing with them for a few years now.
With Dizzy Reed?
Yeah.
And they've got there was a news Shaking, was it recently? Is that right?
Yeah. We have another single coming out this weekend. Yeah, it's all covers, and it's a lot of fun. And it's nonstop, for me, it's just non-stop entertainment hanging out with those guys.
Yeah, and a great name for a band as well.
I know, everybody goes crazy over it. It was great. A tour we did 2 years ago, we had a bus, and we had the bus wrapped, and it said Hookers and Blow in big letters along the side of the bus. And you'd pull into shopping centers and stuff, and you'd see people getting out taking pictures. Girls ooh, look at me, I'm a hooker, and I do cocaine. And then, like, like one time I was walking out of the store, I was walking back to the bus, and there's a woman walking with her young daughter. And the daughter's asking the mother, Mom, what's hookers and blow? And then she's just grabbing her hand, just keep walking.
So 2 more things, Johnny. 2 more things. I need to know. I want to know your funniest road story. You've done loads of gigs, loads of tours. You've been all around the world. What's your funniest road story?
I mean, there's a lot of funny stuff. Like every day has the highs and lows, like the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. It's like, you're going at 100 miles an hour at all times. And then like something will happen and it'll just like, you just crash and burn. And then you'll start up again. And I mean, there's plenty of funny stuff throughout the years. There's constant, hanging out with Steve and hanging out with Kenny and Peter, like Steve Zing, Kenny and Peter. Yeah. And these guys, a lot of them get clowns, everybody's, a prankster. And, whatever, joking around with crew guys, like, where, like, one of the funniest things was, like, our sound guy was, we were playing in Sweden, and the sound, we're looking out the window from our dressing room, we see the line of people waiting to go into the club.
Yeah.
And there's some guy wearing a pink bunny suit. And we're like, we got to get that bunny suit. And so we get the bunny suit. And then our sound guy's wearing it that night. And we're at another bar in, this couple of days later, we're in Berlin. And we're at some other bar after the show. And he comes out to this other bar wearing the bunny suit. And now it's starting to get late. We're getting, close to bus call. It's time to leave. And he just went into like this state of panic. He was like, I got to get out of here. Can't miss bus call. And he ran out of the club. I was outside. Some of us were outside. We were just having a cigarette. And this pink bunny comes running by us. And there was like a fence, but it was just one cable. Like, like a rope.
Yeah.
But it was a very thin cable that you couldn't see because it was in the dark, and he ran into it and went flying. But that was one night. I mean, there's always some kind of like funny stuff happening all the time. Yeah. There's funny stuff, there's tragic stuff, there's like, great stuff. It's all of it. It's all the emotions, and it's all wrapped up into like, like this, like just it all happens in one day.
So the last thing I'm going to ask you is, what's your proudest moment of all the band and everything you've done? What's your proudest moment?
Today.
Right. Okay.
Because it's 2020 and I'm still in the game.
That's very good.
I'm like a cockroach.
That's good.
I'm surviving it. Like when I first, like every time we toured, like with Typo, like in the early days, like pretty much throughout our whole career, I have to say, looking back on it, every time we went home, we always thought that was the last tour we'll ever do. And then something would happen, like something would come up, and it was, like whatever, another opportunity would present itself for the band, and then we'd be back on the road. And it was like, you were just as surprised that you're still doing it, and you wouldn't have been shocked if it all ended the following day. 2020, and I'm still doing it.
So what album would it be that if you were to sit back late at night, have a glass of wine, put some candles on, what album would you play that you've played on?
That I played on? I don't know, because I never really like I'm not really into my own music.
No, sure. I wanted you to say October Rust, but you didn't.
No, October Rust. No.
Exactly.
No, like some of that stuff, like, like those, like, records, like, our records, like the records that I played on, like, the records that I'm a part of, they have a different meaning to me.
Yeah, of course.
It's like, it's like there's some stuff that I'm like, that I listen to, like, when I hear it back, I'm like, wow, that was cool. I can't say like, whole records, but like, there's moments that were like, wow.
What's your favorite couple of Typo songs that you played on?
I guess like, there's definitely a few, like, Love You to Death. These Three Things from Dead Again.
Yeah.
Anesthesia. Like, like these things to me, like, they were great songs, and it's just, I'm very proud to have been a part of it.
Exactly.
Like I feel, fortunate that way. And, and a lot of times, like, since Typo, with all the bands that I've played with, and like, all the other stuff that I've done, nothing matches it. It's like, it doesn't, like, there's a lot of, like, that emotional component. On the Silvertune record, the song Rite of Passage is to me, it's a very special song, and it's, because it's about Peter.
Yeah.
And it has those elements of Typo that I missed, like, like the way the song is structured, and like the you know, the way the song moves and stuff like that, you know, and it was like, I missed that, you know, because, you know, we hadn't done anything, you know, like that, you know, like when Kenny and I did 740, that Type O was still active, very active, you know, so it was like, we didn't want to do anything like Type O because we're already in Type O.
Exactly.
Why would I play with a bunch of other guys trying to sound like Type O Negative? You know, like that didn't interest me. But now that, like, you know, Type O, you know, musically and artistically is not part of my life anymore. There were definitely aspects of, you know, that I missed about the band. You know, like I loved Type O Negative's music. You know, like you know, I loved it a lot more when I wasn't in the band.
That's funny. Well, Johnny Kelly, thank you so much for joining me today. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
I appreciate it as well. I hope we're back across the pond soon.
Exactly. I hope so. Cheers, mate.
You know, stay healthy.